Hi everyone, Joy Divergence here. Are you someone who is a spiritual parrot and that is not allowing yourself to be seen and heard? Here's what I have to say about this. Remove the mask and allow the spiritual parrot within you to come out. Allow yourself to be the person who is on a journey. To discover what it means to be a spiritual pirate for yourself. So as you do this, it's not always going to be perfect at first, as you see. You're going to try and fit in. But when in all reality, you need to take a moment for yourself. And sometimes we need to rebel. Sometimes we need to fight back. But in what way? How do we choose to fight back in the world? Today we have a lot going on with masks, as it were. Are you wearing a mask when you go to work? Are you wearing a mask when you step outside? Are you wearing a mask in your own home? Does a mask ever make you feel claustrophobic? Like you can't breathe? Like you're terrified for your life, but you can't speak up? Then remove your mask. Allow yourself to be heard and seen. If something's not going right in life, then speak up. If you have a spouse, let's say, that wanted to shut you up, then speak up. Let's say that you had a coworker at work that did something that was more harmful than good to others, then speak up. Rebel in the biggest of ways and learn from it. Whatever you take from that experience, don't let somebody hinder your voice. Don't let somebody take away your opportunity to speak up. If you're having to shut up, but yet you feel like you could do things better in life than how they're doing them, instead of complaining to that individual, perhaps it is time you step into being a spiritual leader. Do you understand what that means, perhaps? Some people may perceive it as, well, you're rebelling against all the other religions and stuff like that. Well, how do you think religion got started to begin with? It was because somebody decided to speak up and be different. Speak up and teach in their own way. Life mentors and life coaches are being born around the world and opening up and talking, being the news instead of allowing others to tell them what the news is. If you're allowing others to tell you what the news is out there instead of going out and creating your own news, then yeah, you're putting up with a lot. Sorry to say. You are putting up with far beyond what you should be putting up with. Especially if it's a negative thing and it brings up all this anger within you. Yeah, you're putting up with. Sorry to say it. And I love you enough to tell you it. When sometimes we are putting a mask on and we don't even want to. How many ways are we putting a mask on and not allowing ourselves to be seen and heard? Heck, I've seen people that have designer masks, and then guess what? Those are the most complicated people. Do you know why? Sometimes you can read them like a book, and sometimes you can't. But there are also those that are wearing a black one. And they can also be very complicated, but just not be seen and heard. But sometimes they're just wearing a simple mask. And sometimes they're wearing a complicated one. The complicated ones are probably the individuals that are needing help. Those that are wearing black masks are probably needing help. They need extra support. They need somebody to be able to say something and say, you know what? I had this experience and this is what I did to overcome it. Whether it was with having fibromyalgia or overcoming weight or overcoming whatever else, it's usually because people are stuck in a life that they can't speak up about. They're not allowed. So allow your pirate self to just get out there for once and say something. Stop taking the beating. Stop having people telling you to shut up. And when you're ready to hear what to do next, you'll find the right person. Because sometimes, as cheesy as it sounds for those of you who know the movie this comes from, but it is true. Sometimes all we can do is the next right thing. And only you can decide what that is. But for some people that don't know how to discern for themselves how to do the next right thing, and they're so used to mom and dad or a brother or a sister or a nephew or a cousin or even just a neighbor down the street. We'll go with Joe Schmo. And Joe Schmo wants to sit there and tell you, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh, you'd be horrible at that. At that point in time, throw a pie if you need to. And say, you know what? I'm going to do whatever I need to find out where I want to be and what I want to be. And you don't get to say what that looks like. I do. Thank you for the feedback. But now I'm choosing to move forward and find out for myself what really works for me. There's so many different ways of wearing a mask. There's so many ways to hide behind others instead of taking accountability and responsibility for yourself and saying, you know what, I get to be heard today. But I'm going to find a way that serves me and others. So speak up. Stop hiding behind a mask. The things that are going on with the coronavirus, people that are experiencing that, and have experienced those that have lost lives. Take a brief moment and ask yourself, what didn't they get to speak up about that caused them to die? There was something that happened, some experience that's been happening, that they were carrying so much of that weight with them that they were stuck in apathy. that when the coronavirus was released, that it raised their energy vibrations. And this is going to sound a little bit out there for some of you who don't know what I mean, but hopefully those of you that find this page or video will be in a space to be able to hear what I'm about to. It raised their energy to that level of death. Apathy is an energy frequency that is below death. It's where they stop feeling and they are actually being with death. But they won't know how to actually be fully present with it because they're not allowed to. They weren't allowed to let go of what didn't serve them. So they ended up holding on to so much that when it came time for this life experience to happen, for people to want to be heard, enough people wanted people to be heard and seen that they continued to talk. And when they did, other people died. There's a lot to look at there. And some people want to blame somebody else. But in all reality, the other person didn't get to speak up or didn't choose to speak up about their story, their life experiences. Isn't it about time you got your story heard? Isn't it about time that you shared something different? Even if you change the way you look, even if you change the way you feel, does that change everything else around you? It changes your perception of everything. When you allow yourself to let go of what happened by speaking up, by saying, this life experience happened. I didn't like it so much, but here's what I did to change it. Here's what I did so that another life wouldn't be lost, so another person wouldn't die, because I chose to speak up. I chose to be a voice for those who didn't have one. When I was a child, I saw many people slip through the cracks, never to be seen or heard from again. You think cancer is the major killer out there? It's not. Sorry to say, it's not. It is when your voice is not heard. It is when you do not allow yourself to resolve your issues within you. And if someone else doesn't want you to tell somebody else, then you act like there's a freaking voodoo witch doctor, if you need to, next to you, and tell them all your secrets and say, you know what? This life was shit. I need something different. Can you give me some advice? And you're talking to a voodoo witch doctor that's in your mind, and you're just kind of talking to somebody who's not there. Well, then do it. There was a time when I had to. And it got me through. It didn't just get me through, it got me out. Sometimes I went outside and did singing and dancing and let everything out until I was crying and falling to my knees. And letting out the anger, letting out the sadness through my voice, through my dancing, through my singing. And I didn't care. There was times I really just didn't give a damn anymore. Instead, I let the beaver build the dam. The person who wanted to chew away the forest, the person who wanted to chew away my forest. Beavers can be very wonderful creatures and help you build a dam that is worthwhile. But sometimes the dam does more harm than good to other creatures. And sometimes it does a great deal of good. It depends on where you build it and when you build it. Some people, they will build dams in a way that if that dam were to break because it wasn't strong enough, it would flood a valley below. Especially if you didn't have the right tools in place to be able to stop the wave from overflowing over a town or a village, and everything gets washed away. And many people's lives end up being lost. I don't know why on earth I felt the need to get on this screen today and put on what I had would find this video today. It was something that they needed. The timing can mean everything. But is it time for you to stop wearing a mask? Is it time for you to speak up about the challenges that you're dealing with at home or at work or somewhere else? The only reason people are getting so stinking sick from this coronavirus is because they are not speaking up. Be the voice for those who cannot. If you need to, you go to a freaking police officer. If you don't trust a police officer because you've been taught to be afraid of them, then ask yourself, where can I go to speak up at? Even if you have to go and do your own YouTube video. And say, look at the horrors that are happening in my life. Help me to get out. Then do it. Even if it's up there temporary, even if it gets torn down, even if they take down your website, even if they take everything away that you can to have a voice, speak up. Find a way. Not everything has to be through a mouthpiece. Sometimes it could be through a code. Sometimes it can be through somebody else saying banging pots and pans is speaking up and saying, I need help. Don't let your light go out. Don't let your voice not be heard. Too many people have died and lost their lives already. And for those of you that it is hurting you to see those people gone, start speaking up about what really happened, not about what others told you would happen. What was your experience when you saw this person die because you didn't speak up before they died about what was going on inside the home? Too many people are suffering out there. It's time to speak up. And sometimes it's not. If you know that there's going to be a better timing and you know that from within, then wait. But if you know that you can't wait a moment longer because somebody else's life is on the line, then find a way to speak up. Because you and every person out there is worth it. There's so many lives that could use that help. That is why I do what I do. It has nothing to do with energy work and everything else and stuff. Like, yeah, I do energy work. Yeah, I do board of director processes. Yeah, I do all this other stuff. Sure. but it was because I was tired of suffering. I did it for myself first so that I could help other people to alleviate that suffering. I decided to be a spiritual leader. I decided to be a pirate in my own way. I decided to do what was necessary to alleviate the pain. And some people really want to judge somebody for alleviating the pain in different ways, but it's because they have been pushed to the edge and back. I know some people that want to criticize the killer. So how are you being a killer in life yourself? Alleviate that riddle first. Resolve it. So that you can resolve your anger and frustration towards somebody who has done such a thing, or maybe raped somebody. I know that that's exactly what I had to do because I had so much anger inside myself that if I didn't speak up, that if I didn't get out there, another life was going to be lost. I was killing myself slowly but surely by not speaking up. I was killing others by not speaking up about what was really going on behind closed doors or out on the streets, right in front of you even. Isn't it time you got to be the pirate? Isn't it time you got to be a spiritual leader even? Find your way. Stop running from who you are. And you will find peace. A greater peace than you have ever known. Those that are healers, those that release the dragon within, that get angry or that aren't getting angry, that are suppressing their dragon. Maybe it is time you got angry for those of you that are suppressing your dragon. But do it in a way that serves you and others. And don't do it in a way that you're going to take somebody's life for Pete's sake. Take accountability and responsibility for where you're not in life. Well, they didn't let me speak up. Well, they didn't let me do this. They didn't let me do that. The only person that was getting in your way the entire time was you. I know it sounds ridiculous. And I know that even hearing something like this can hurt. I know that it can even bring us anger even more so. Ironically, there's some things that I don't even speak about. That I just haven't found the courage yet. Instead of allowing myself just to be with the energy of courage. But there's other times that I step into that courage and I let Hail Mary break loose. I let my pirate out and I stand in my personal power and I say what happened. It's not right for people to suffer. Even you, whoever it is that is watching this at this time. Stop hiding. If you want to be angry, be angry. If you want to be sad, be sad. If You want to be able to speak up and just say, you know what, hallelujah. I don't care what it is that you want to really say. But speak up. I've had some people want to put me down because that's how they wanted to speak up. They wanted to be heard. They wanted to be seen. What gives you the right to be able to give advice, is what somebody said to me recently. What doesn't? The only thing that's not would be myself. That's the only difference. I may have a piece of paper, and that piece of paper can tell me, oh, you've got a PhD in this or something like that. Or it could tell you that you have a certificate in this. It doesn't matter either way. A piece of paper does not define who a human being is. Not hard. A person can still have a piece of paper and have a degree behind them and still do a really big damage and hurt people more than help them. Especially if they're not in the space to deal with it, and especially if they haven't been taught any better. It's like dealing with a little child, a 3-year-old, throwing a tantrum. I don't know the president of the United States. I don't know his wife. I don't know the people that were the past presidents in a way that was on a personal level. But just because you served in the military doesn't make you a good person. There's people within the military that have been done horrific things and have never gotten to speak about it because somebody was holding power over them, because somebody was being this big, huge monster. That showed up for them to be able to look at and say, you know what, I get to face you, or I get to run from you. But running doesn't always solve the problem. Running away from the dragon also means you're running away from all of this that is within you that you haven't resolved yet. So stop running and face the man in the mirror. Let yourself be heard and seen for once. After all, you could save a life. And after all, people may actually follow you for once and love you for it. Some people may sit there and criticize you till you are blue in the face. But either way, find a way to speak up. And keep speaking up. Otherwise, you're going to be suffering for a very long time. And so will others. Learn the lessons. Learn how to present yourself. Learn how to get out there and say what your story is. Even if you have to change a name and hide behind that. And hide in plain sight. We all are hiding. Just depends on how we're doing it. That matters. I have known people that are honest to good people. They just don't know any better. I've also known people that know exactly what they're doing in that moment. And they are intentionally seeking out victims. They've been trained to do that. The kind of people I was surrounded by as a child did just that. The difference between me and them, one, I didn't live with them long enough to get trained to do that. I can't judge them for what life they've been through because they've been trained to do that. Just the same way as we've been trained to punish ourselves or wear a mask. It is the hardest thing to not judge. And it really is. Especially when you've been taught to do it so much throughout life. So we do it until we don't know any different. If you need to let the judgment out, let the judgment out. Let it be seen and heard because you will get feedback. Some people will be like, hell yeah, go ahead and speak up or whatever else and stuff. And then other people sometimes will be like, what gives you the right? And you say, you know what? I gave myself the right. Because I'm a human being. I get to treat myself like a human being. You don't get to decide whether or not I get treated like a human being or not. You want to treat me that way? I get to choose whether to take that on or not. I get to just decide whether or not this person gets to ruin or run my life. And if you're having a hard time with any of this and you need some extra help, contact me at G.C.team of chain breakers with periods in between the words. I'll write it down at the bottom once it gets posted. It may take about 24 hours. So, when you finally get to understand what it's like to speak up and be that spiritual leader and be a pirate in your own way, and rebel against what has caused you to stay stuck in life, do what works for you until it doesn't. If you're not getting the results you want in life, then maybe you need to redirect where you're being a pirate at in life too. And find another way. The job that I've been working at lately, I've been having a feeling for a while it's not where I'm supposed to be. And yet I've had moments where I'm being stubborn because I'm allowing others to tell me what to do sometimes. So I started looking at the job itself and going, how can I be the example here? I can do what I can to teach others there at work, but being a spiritual leader and then going to a job where it's harder to be that because you haven't been trained at that job well enough to really be a spiritual leader there. Well, maybe I need to find somebody else who can be a spiritual leader there for them. Someone who can know the job at that kind of job that I'm working in, so and know it well enough that they know how to do all the little things, little quirks that are in that job. But find somebody that also is open to being a spiritual leader. At the same time, because that's who they really are going to want at that job. Ironically, they don't know what they're looking for yet. Maybe they do. Maybe they just want to be patient with me, but I'm not willing to be as patient with them. I suppose that being patient with them would actually be that much harder, because right now sometimes it's hard to be the one that's being taught a lot of new things, and sometimes it's hard to be the one to teach all those new things. Sometimes I don't like being the student so much, because when you're also in a position where you're supposed to be also teaching, the two paths kind of can mesh together at first and not make a whole lot of sense and not really work. But I also know that part of what I'm looking to do is to train people how to be a spiritual leader, no matter where they're at. But I need to find a beginning point that really works for me and not against me. Right now, that's working more against me. I'm not getting the income that I need in order to keep this place. I'm going to have to move again. It's okay though. I need to find what works for me. I need to allow life to take me where I need to go. It's what you kind of learn from wind. Wind will actually blow you where you need to go. And if you're being a brick building and being stubborn, stop it. And yes, I'm calling myself out on this too and stuff because I need to. I am calling myself out big time and saying, stop being so stubborn. Talking to the man in the mirror, or woman in this case, but more pirate, spiritual leader, whatever you want to call it. Or call me even, for that matter. Know that you are loved. Big bear hugs. Namaste.